This is the strangest contradiction in construction right now. Communities across America are showing up to town halls, filing lawsuits, and organizing protests against data centers. And yet, despite hundreds of billions of dollars pledged and thousands of proposals on the table, a surprisingly small fraction of these projects are actually breaking ground on schedule. The bottleneck isn't public opposition. It's something far less dramatic and far harder to fix. Let's get into it. Over the past 2 years, data centers have quietly become one of the most contested land uses in America. Town council meetings that used to be sparsely attended are now packed. Grassroots opposition groups have formed in dozens of states, from Georgia to Virginia to Arizona, organizing around noise complaints, water usage concerns, property value worries, and anxieties about permanently altering the character of small communities. Some proposals have been outright rejected by local zoning boards. Others have been delayed for years by litigation. And yet, when you actually look at the industry's build-out numbers against what was originally announced, the picture is a little different than the protest headlines suggest. A significant share of proposed capacity that hyperscalers announce with enormous fanfare, hasn't actually broken ground yet. Some of that is deliberate sequencing, but a meaningful portion of it is stuck. And it's stuck for a reason that has almost nothing to do with the protesters outside City Hall. It's stuck because there simply aren't enough people who know how to build these things. To understand the scale of the problem, consider the estimate making the rounds in industry circles right now. To meet the current pipeline of proposed data center capacity on anything close to the timelines companies have publicly announced, the country would need to add roughly 500,000 electricians, 300,000 welders, and over 500,000 plumbers. Those aren't small, easily solved gaps. Those are structural shortages that have been building for years, and they're colliding with the AI industry's demand for speed at exactly the wrong moment. So how did the construction industry end up this short-staffed at the precise moment it needed to scale up the fastest? Part of the answer goes back decades. Trade apprenticeship enrollment declined steadily from the 1990s onward, as a generation of students was steered toward 4-year degrees instead of vocational training. That created a slow-motion demographic problem, master electricians and welders aging out of the workforce faster than new tradespeople were being trained to replace them. For years, that gap was manageable because overall construction demand grew at a relatively steady pace. Then, the AI boom hit, and demand for exactly these skill sets exploded practically overnight. There's also a more recent, more immediate factor. Immigration enforcement changes over the past couple of years have measurably reduced the pool of available construction labor in several states, particularly in specialty trades that have historically relied heavily on immigrant workers. Multiple contractors and industry economists have pointed to tightened immigration policy as compounding an already severe shortage, right as demand for skilled tradespeople hit an all-time high. So, what does this labor shortage actually look like on a real job site? And why can't companies just throw more money at the problem? Here's the thing about electricians and welders. You can't manufacture experience. A qualified journeyman electrician typically needs years of supervised apprenticeship before they're capable of safely and efficiently wiring the kind of high-voltage electrical infrastructure a gigawatt-scale data center requires. You can raise wages to attract more people into the trade, and companies absolutely are doing that, with reports of specialty electricians on major data center projects commanding significantly higher pay than just a few years ago. But raising wages doesn't create 5 years of hands-on experience overnight. It just means everyone is competing harder for the same limited pool of already qualified workers. That competition has real consequences for project timelines. When a data center developer can't secure enough qualified electrical contractors, the project doesn't just proceed slower, it can stall entirely, especially for the specialized high-voltage switchgear and power distribution work that these facilities require, which isn't work that can be handed to less experienced crews without serious safety and reliability risks. Welders face a similar bottleneck, particularly for the structural steel work and specialized piping involving liquid cooling systems. And plumbers, while perhaps less obviously connected to a data center in people's minds, are essential for the enormous water infrastructure many of these facilities require for cooling, another area where demand has spiked well beyond the available skilled workforce. Now, let's go back to the public opposition side of this story, because it's not disconnected from the labor issue. It's actually tangled up with it in a way that's easy to miss. When a community pushes back hard enough to delay or kill a proposed data center, that's obviously the more visible story. It generates local news coverage, it generates the kind of dramatic town hall footage that circulates online, and it creates the impression that public resistance is the primary force slowing down the industry's expansion. But industry analysts tracking the broader pipeline suggest that even in states and counties where local opposition is minimal or non-existent, a substantial share of proposed capacity is still moving slower than announced, purely because there aren't enough qualified workers to staff the project at the pace developers originally hoped for. In other words, public backlash and labor shortages are both real, but they're often being conflated in coverage of the industry when they're actually two separate bottlenecks operating in parallel, sometimes compounding each other in the same location. There's an interesting wrinkle here too. Some of the communities experiencing the strongest local opposition are the same places seeing housing costs spike due to construction worker influx, exactly the dynamic we covered in our data center video a few weeks back. So even where a project does have enough labor to move forward, that labor influx is itself becoming a source of the local friction fueling opposition elsewhere. It's a bit of a feedback loop. Labor scarcity drives up costs and relocation incentives. Relocated workers strain local housing markets, and housing strain becomes ammunition for the next round of community pushback against the next proposed project. So, what is the industry actually doing to address the labor shortage, beyond just raising wages and hoping for the best? Several major contractors and industry groups have ramped up apprenticeship program funding significantly over the past 2 years, specifically targeting electrical and welding trades. Some hyperscalers have started directly funding vocational training partnerships with community colleges near planned campus locations, essentially trying to grow a local skilled labor pool from scratch in regions where data centers are being built in rural or semi-rural areas without existing trade infrastructure. There's also been a push toward more modular and prefabricated construction techniques, specifically to reduce the amount of specialized on-site labor required. Prefabricating electrical switchgear assemblies and cooling infrastructure components in controlled factory settings, then shipping them to site for installation, allows some of the most labor-intensive, skill-dependent work to happen in a more controlled environment with fewer workers, rather than requiring enormous specialized crews on site simultaneously. Whether these interventions can close a gap measured in the hundreds of thousands of workers within the timeline the industry wants is genuinely an open question. Training a qualified electrician or welders from scratch still takes years, and the current pace of apprenticeship enrollment growth, while improving, isn't yet close to matching the scale of projected demand. So where does this leave the industry heading into the second half of the decade? The honest picture is a construction sector caught between two powerful opposing forces. On one side, an extraordinary wave of capital and corporate urgency to build faster than almost any construction cycle in modern history. On the other, a skilled labor market that simply cannot expand at anywhere near that pace, regardless of how much money gets thrown at the problem. Public opposition adds real friction in specific locations, but the deeper structural constraint running under almost the entire industry right now is a workforce shortage that's been building for decades and is only now becoming impossible to ignore. What's clear is that the story people are telling about data centers, hyperscalers versus angry local communities, is real but incomplete. The quieter, less visually dramatic story is a construction industry running up against the physical limits of how fast you can actually train a human being to safely wire a gigawatt of electrical infrastructure. And that limit doesn't care how much capital is sitting on the sidelines waiting to be deployed. For now, town halls keep filling up, apprenticeship programs keep expanding as fast as they can, and somewhere across rural America, a half-built data center is probably waiting, not for permits, not for community approval, but for enough qualified electricians to show up. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and want more from the definitive channel covering the world's biggest infrastructure stories, make sure you're subscribed to Apex Infra.